I'm Brett Baer in Washington. You've been watching a news briefing from the head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Tom Frieden, about the first diagnosed case of Ebola here in the United States. We'll go live to John Roberts at the CDC in just a moment. But we're also following another breaking news story in just the past few minutes. Confirmed a new security crisis for the U.S. Secret Service. A convicted felon with a gun on an elevator with President Obama in Atlanta. Details in a live report from Mike Emanuel on Capitol Hill. That's coming up. Now, back to Ebola and what we've just been listening to, the first case in the U.S. Senior national correspondent John Roberts is at the CDC headquarters in Atlanta tonight. John, what do we know?
Well, we know that there are aspects of this case which are both reassuring and troubling, Brett. First of all, let's go over the reassuring part of this. The patient is in isolation. A team from the Centers for Disease Control is on its way there, and this patient was put into isolation literally upon admission to the hospital. They asked, "Where were you from?" He said, "Liberia." They put him in isolation. Now, here's the troubling part. He traveled from Liberia. He is a Liberian, was coming to the United States to visit family here on an airplane. He left on the 19th. He arrived on the 20th. Some good news, he was not symptomatic, not showing any signs of Ebola. Troubling news, he got sick on the 24th of September. On the 26th, he sought medical help initially, and then apparently went back home and wasn't admitted to the hospital until a couple of days later. So this leaves quite a window of opportunity for him to have been in contact with other people, potentially infecting other people. In fact, Dr. Tom Frieden said it is likely that one or more people may come down with Ebola as a result of close contact with this patient. He also said that there is still a mystery surrounding this patient about the origins of the disease, which again speaks to the need for a massive global response to eradicate it in West Africa. Here's what he said.
I have no doubt that we will control this importation or this case of Ebola so that it does not spread widely in this country. It is certainly possible that someone who had contact with this individual, a family member or other individual, could develop Ebola in the coming weeks. But there is no doubt in my mind that we will stop it here.
Now, kind of a worst-case scenario, look at what happened in Nigeria when American Patrick Sawyer traveled from Liberia, Monrovia, to Lagos, Nigeria, died a couple of days later from the Ebola virus, infected 19 other people along the way. However, Dr. Frieden said he believes that that will not be the case here in the United States, that our treatment and infection control are such that this will be contained, though he did again warn that a couple of more people could come down with this disease. I talked with Anthony Fauci from the National Institutes of Allergies and Infectious Disease just a short time ago. He said that this is what everyone has been waiting for, though he does believe that the health authorities across the country are ready to respond to something like this. But no question, Brett, this will raise another question. British Airways has suspended until the end of the year all flights out of Liberia and Sierra Leone. Will there now be pressure on American carriers to do the same thing? It's a fast-moving story, Brett. We'll keep hearing about this as the night wears on and, of course, the next few days.
All right, we'll head back for breaking details. John Roberts in Atlanta. Just breaking right now, the White House saying that the president has been briefed by the CDC about this story from Dr. Tom Frieden, who you just heard from, about the first Ebola case here in the U.S. Now, as we were saying, back here in Washington, breaking news on the crisis for the U.S. Secret Service. We are learning right now about another possibly serious security lapse on top of last week's major incursion into the White House by a man with a knife. This one, different, in Atlanta. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel is live on Capitol Hill tonight with this story. Good evening, Mike.
Well, Brett, good evening. Sources say there was a security breach 2 weeks ago when President Obama visited the CDC in Atlanta. A security contractor with a gun and a criminal record was allowed on an elevator with the President of the United States, violating Secret Service protocols. Whistleblowers came forward, and Utah Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz calls the incident outrageous. Chaffetz notes a convicted criminal was within arm's reach of Mr. Obama, and the Secret Service never did a background check. That was 3 days before the recent fence-jumping incident at the White House.
An intruder walked in the front door of the White House, and that is unacceptable.
Republican Chairman Darrell Issa and the House Oversight Committee sought answers from the Secret Service about a September 19th incident when Omar Gonzalez jumped a White House fence, ran across the north lawn, entered the mansion, through the cross hall, into the East Room, and was eventually detained on the crosswalk hall outside of the Green Room by an off-duty member of the counter-assault team. Issa wanted to know why Gonzalez wasn't stopped sooner.
We have an automated system that can lock down the White House. $800 million a year, and that door was unlocked with no one standing at it when Mr. Gonzalez came through it. Is that correct?
The door was unlocked at the time of Mr. Gonzalez's entry. That's correct.
Republican Jason Chaffetz said agents should be allowed to do whatever it takes.
Perhaps more lethal force is necessary, and I want those Secret Service agents and officers to know at least this member of Congress has their back.
Secret Service Director Julia Pearson said a variety of agencies, including Secret Service, had previous interactions with Gonzalez, who is suspected of suffering from PTSD before the White House incident, and yet he still got through.
It's clear that our security plan was not properly executed. This is unacceptable, and I take full responsibility, and I will make sure that it does not happen again.
A Democrat on the panel said the agency needs an overhaul.
The time is ripe for a 21st century makeover of the Secret Service.
Another Democrat said Pearson's priorities are out of order.
And I wish to God you protected the White House like you're protecting your reputation here today.
There were also questions about a 2011 incident involving shots fired striking the White House, which the Secret Service didn't detect for days.
You don't go through every inch of that residence. You explain to the jury why a housekeeper found evidence of the shooting and your agency did not.
It's difficult to see at night.
How about here?
Officers.
Can you hear at night?
Florida Republican John Mica even offered a simple solution.
Have you ever heard of these guys?
After a closed-door classified session, Chaffetz sounded this alarm.
The more I learn, the worse it is, and that scares me.
Late today, House Homeland Security Chairman Michael McCaul announced plans to offer legislation creating a blue ribbon panel of experts to conduct a top-to-bottom review of the Secret Service. Clearly, many lawmakers think the problems are systemic and not just mistakes. Brett?
And Mike, quickly, the Secret Service is not responding to this gun in the elevator story.
No, I've been in contact with them. They said they were checking it out, but they have not gotten back to us as of showtime.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
Sure.
Still ahead, the terrorism name game and what the president knew and when he knew it about the threat. A night for breaking news here on Special Report. Don't go anywhere.